A president publicly musing about whether a sitting senator deserves death. That is not a line from a dystopian series. It is how Senator Mark Kelly now describes Donald Trump's reaction to a video reminding U.S. troops of a basic truth. You must refuse illegal orders. So what is really being tested here? One man's temper or the strength of American democracy itself? On the surface, this looks like another Donald Trump drama. A furious president, an angry senator, a wave of headlines. But underneath is something far more serious. A commander-in-chief suggesting that elected lawmakers are traitors who could face execution, while his Pentagon opens an investigation into one of them over a short video about unlawful commands. That is not just conflict. That is the executive branch probing how far it can go in weaponizing fear. Kelly's core message is simple. He says Trump and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth are trying to silence him, to intimidate him, to turn the machinery of defense and even the FBI into tools of political punishment. He does not talk like a Twitter pundit. He talks like a former Navy combat pilot and astronaut who has seen what happens when power is unchecked, and who now sees some of those same instincts inside his own government. There are at least 3 layers here that most headlines barely touch. First, this is a direct assault on the idea that loyalty in a republic belongs to the Constitution, not to a man. The video that started all of this simply reminded service members of the Uniform Code of Military Justice. Illegal orders must be refused. In any other era, a president would have said, "Of course." Instead, this one talks about seditious behavior, traitors, and punishment by death, even amplifying a post calling for the lawmakers to be hanged. That response tries to flip the logic. If you question the president, you are betraying the country. If that framing takes root inside the military, it changes everything. It turns constitutional duty into disloyalty and obedience to one leader into the ultimate test of patriotism. Second, Kelly's warning is really about self-censorship inside the system. He is not only talking about himself. He is talking about Republican senators who privately oppose tariffs that raise prices, but are too afraid to vote against them. He is talking about colleagues who know healthcare premiums are spiking, but will not cross Trump to fix it. Fear doesn't just chill speech on social media. Fear quietly rewires how Congress votes, how agencies investigate, how prosecutors choose their targets. That is how institutions rot from the inside, not through one dramatic coup, but through 1,000 small silences. Third, this fight drags the military into the heart of partisan combat. When senators and a president struggle in public over what counts as a lawful order, they are not just arguing over legal theory. They are sending competing signals to lieutenants, captains, and admirals who may one day be asked to carry out controversial strikes, like the second attack on survivors of a suspected drug boat near Venezuela, which some lawmakers and legal experts already fear could be a war crime. If those officers begin to split into pro-Trump and anti-Trump camps, the United States risks something it has always feared, a heavily armed institution that is internally polarized along partisan lines. Kelly knows this, and that is why he reaches for biography. He contrasts Trump's bankrupt casinos and reality TV stardom with his own record, being shot at over Iraq and Kuwait, honoring 9/11 victims in space, recovering the remains of fallen astronauts, sitting at his wife Gabby Giffords' hospital bed after a political shooting. He is not just telling a sentimental story. He is building moral capital, saying, "I have earned the right to talk about the rule of law." Have you? But here is the deeper question. What happens if all of this becomes normal? Every time a president can talk casually about executing political opponents and nothing truly breaks. No impeachment, no mass revolt in his own party, no clear red line enforced, the boundary of the possible shifts. The next threat sounds a little less shocking. The next investigation of a critic feels a little more routine. The Overton window moves, inch by inch, toward a politics where violence is not an unthinkable taboo, but an option some leaders openly flirt with. Meanwhile, for ordinary Americans, the cost is brutally concrete. When lawmakers are too scared to challenge tariffs, grocery and school supply bills go up. When they are too afraid to fix healthcare formulas, families live one accident away from bankruptcy. When the Pentagon is busy chasing senators over videos instead of policing its own conduct, accountability for real military mistakes slips further away. That is the thread connecting everything Kelly said. Bullying from the top does not just bruise egos in Washington. It empties wallets, weakens oversight, and erodes rights. And there is one more layer: precedent. Future presidents are watching. Ambitious governors, cabinet secretaries, and would-be strongmen are watching. If they learn that a U.S. president can speak the language of treason and execution, direct investigations at elected critics, pressure the military to join the show, and still pay no real price, they will file that lesson away for later. The danger is not only what Trump is doing now, but what someone more disciplined, more patient, and more strategic might do with the same toolbox tomorrow. You do not have to agree with Mark Kelly on every policy to see the danger in this moment. If a president can publicly fantasize about the death of elected officials, direct investigations at his critics, and still keep the unwavering loyalty of his party, what message does that send to every future president who is taking notes? The real stakes are not whether Trump owns one more news cycle. The real stakes are what kind of behavior Americans are willing to normalize in the office that commands the world's largest military. So here is the question we all have to answer, long before the next election. If threatening to execute lawmakers for speaking out is not a red line, then what is?